Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. How long are you going to let your circumstances define your destiny? How long will you keep telling yourself the same story? I'm not ready. I'm too old. I don't have the time. I don't have the resources. Enough. Right now, right here is the moment you draw a line in the sand and say, no more. No more playing small. No more excuses. No more hiding your greatness behind fear, doubt, or the opinions of others. You were not born to be average. You were born to be unstoppable. There is a fire inside you. Maybe it's burning low, maybe life tried to snuff it out, but it's still there. And all it takes is one decision to ignite it into an inferno. That decision, to unleash the power within. You already have everything you need. Not someday, not when you get your act together. Right now, you are more powerful than you've ever imagined. But power unused becomes pain. Power locked inside becomes frustration, anxiety, depression. And that's what's killing dreams. Not lack of talent, not lack of intelligence, but the refusal to unleash what's already inside. So what's stopping you? Fear? Let me tell you something about fear. It's a liar. It whispers in your ear to protect you, but its real mission is to control you. And it's done a damn good job until now. Today, you take back the wheel. You rip the chains off, you own your story, and you decide that nothing, not your past, not your mistakes, not your environment, will determine your future. Do you know what happens when you commit? Not when you try, but when you commit, the universe moves. Doors open. Opportunities show up. The people you need appear. And that power you thought you'd lost, it explodes through your veins like a force of nature. But commitment isn't about words. It's not about motivation. It's about decisions and action. It's not about how you feel. It's about what you do when you don't feel like it. Champions aren't made when the lights are on. They're made in the dark, when no one's watching, when it's just you, the voice in your head. And the decision to rise or retreat. So what will it be? Because life is not a practice run. This is it. This is your shot. And I don't care how many times you've fallen, if you're still breathing, you're still in the fight. Now stand tall, look within, because that power, it's not in the books, it's not in the crowd, it's in you. And today, right now, you unleash it. You were not born to be average, you were born to be unstoppable. Let that truth settle into your bones. It's not just a motivational quote. It's a declaration, a reminder of what you already know deep inside. Every single one of us came into this world with a spark, a unique energy, a gift that no one else can duplicate. But somewhere along the way, we start to forget. We begin to shrink ourselves to fit into boxes created by fear, society, or the limiting beliefs of the people around us. We trade greatness for acceptance. We trade ambition for comfort. We trade purpose for predictability. But the truth never disappears. It waits. It waits for the moment when you're ready to remember who you really are. And that moment is now. You were not born to play small. You weren't designed for mediocrity. You were created to make an impact, to rise above, to stand out, to lead, to inspire. The fact that you're even here, breathing, living, thinking, dreaming, that alone is a miracle. You beat the odds just by being born, and that alone is proof that you've already overcome impossible obstacles. So why settle for anything less than extraordinary? It's easy to forget your power when you're surrounded by average. When the people around you settle, you start thinking that's just how life works. But deep down, there's a voice that won't be quiet. It whispers, sometimes it screams, and it says, there's more. There's something greater. That voice isn't lying to you, it's calling you. The unstoppable part of you, it's not some fantasy. It's real. It's in your DNA. It's in your decisions, your desires, your drive. But it doesn't activate just because you want it to. You have to claim it. You have to fight for it. Because the world isn't going to hand you power. It's going to test you to see if you're ready for it. And you are. The average life is built on playing it safe, on avoiding risk, minimizing discomfort, and staying just under the radar so you never have to feel rejection, failure, or pain. But here's the hard truth. Avoiding pain guarantees mediocrity. Growth lives outside of comfort. Power is forged through pressure. Strength is born in struggle. You were built to rise in the middle of chaos, to create in the middle of uncertainty, to believe in the middle of doubt. The unstoppable version of you doesn't need everything to be perfect. It just needs you to decide that you're done waiting, to decide that you're done doubting, to decide that you're done pretending to be less than who you are. Because when you step into your full power, when you stop negotiating with fear and stop watering down your dreams to make other people comfortable, everything begins to change. You start to walk differently. You speak with purpose. You think with clarity. You move with confidence, not because you have all the answers, but because you finally realize that you don't need permission to be great. You were not put here just to survive. You were put here to thrive, to grow, to push boundaries, and to set your own standard. Stop waiting for someone to discover you. Discover yourself. Stop hoping someone will give you a shot. Take the shot. Build the door if no one opens one for you. You see, average is crowded. Everyone's trying to fit into the same mold, follow the same script, chase the same goals. But unstoppable people break the mold. They tear up the script. They create new paths. They don't compete, they dominate. They don't ask if it's possible, they make it possible. Being unstoppable doesn't mean you never fall. It means you refuse to stay down. It means you get up one more time, then life knocks you down. It means you use every failure as fuel. Every setback becomes strategy. Every scar becomes strength. There's a warrior in you, a creator, a builder, a leader. And that part of you is not fragile, it's fierce. But it's not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet resilience. Sometimes it's relentless focus. Sometimes it's the choice to show up when you don't feel like it. But every time you choose growth over comfort, courage over fear, action over excuses, you move closer to unleashing the unstoppable force within you. It's not about being fearless, it's about being courageous in spite of the fear. Fear is natural. But it doesn't get to drive, you do. The moment you stop letting fear dictate your choices is the moment you begin to rise. That's when you separate yourself from the average. That's when you break out of the loop of playing small and start living in your full potential. You were not born to fit in. You were born to stand up, stand out, and stand firm in who you are. And the world needs that version of you, the real you, the bold you, the focused you. Not the watered down version you show people because you're afraid they won't understand. Forget being understood. Be undeniable. Be so aligned with your purpose that nothing can shake you. This isn't about arrogance, it's about certainty, the kind of certainty that comes from knowing who you are, what you're here to do, and what you refuse to tolerate any longer. When you tap into that certainty, you become magnetic. You draw people in, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you're living in truth, in power, in motion. Average people look at obstacles and freeze. Unstoppable people look at obstacles and rise. They see pain and transform it. They see loss and learn from it. They see pressure and perform under it because they know something most people don't. Pressure doesn't break diamonds, it creates them. And you are a diamond. You've just been buried under years of doubt, fear, shame, and stories that don't belong to you. But now it's time to chip away at all that. It's time to uncover what's always been there. The relentless, powerful, extraordinary version of you that's been waiting for a reason to show up. You don't need someone to save you. You don't need someone to give you permission. You just need to remember. Remember what you came here to do. Remember what lights you up. Remember who the hell you are. You weren't born for average. You weren't born to blend in. You weren't born to coast. You were born to challenge, to grow, to rise, and to lead. To shape your environment instead of letting it shape you. To make noise when others stay silent. To create change when others wait for it. Fear is a liar. Action is the antidote. Fear has mastered the art of disguise. It doesn't always show up as terror or panic. Sometimes it whispers. It pretends to protect you. It sounds like reason, like logic, like caution. It wraps itself in stories that sound true. It says, you're not ready. It says, what if you fail? It says, what will people think? It convinces you to pause, to hesitate, to wait for the right moment. But here's what you need to understand. Fear doesn't want to keep you safe. Fear wants to keep you the same. It wants you in the comfort zone. It wants you stuck, stagnant, playing it small. It feeds on uncertainty and creates scenarios in your mind that haven't even happened, keeping you paralyzed in imaginary pain. Fear will lie to you about your potential. It will exaggerate your limits. It will minimize your strength. And if you listen long enough, it won't just slow you down. It will own you. Fear is not the problem. Believing fear is the problem. We've all been lied to by fear, told we weren't good enough, smart enough, talented enough, worthy enough. But let's be clear, those lies don't come from reality, they come from the mind. And more specifically, from a conditioned part of your mind that has learned to survive by staying small. Fear is a primitive response designed to keep you alive, but it was never meant to control your life. You're not in danger, you're in discomfort. And there's a big difference. The dreams you have, the goals you think about when no one's around, the fire that keeps burning no matter how many times you try to quiet it, that's the truth. That's your soul talking. And it's louder than fear, but only when you choose to listen. Action is what shuts fear up. Because fear thrives in the unknown, but action creates clarity. You can think yourself into a hole, spiral in uncertainty, overanalyze every decision until you talk yourself out of greatness. But the moment you take a step, any step, fear begins to lose its grip. Fear can only control you when you're still. The moment you move, you shift the energy. You send a message to your brain that says, we're not just surviving, we're living. Action turns doubt into data. It turns hesitation into momentum. It turns the fog of confusion into focus. You don't have to have the whole plan figured out. You don't need to see the full staircase. Just take the next step. Progress is power, and power silences fear. You don't get confident by waiting to feel confident. You get confident by doing the thing you're afraid of, again and again, until it loses its power. Fear tells you that failure is the end. Action teaches you that failure is just feedback. Fear will say, what if you fall? Action says, what if you fly? And every time you choose to act in spite of fear, you build resilience, you build trust with yourself, you prove to your nervous system that discomfort won't kill you, it will grow you. This is how unstoppable people are made. Not by avoiding fear, but by walking straight through it. They feel the fear and move anyway. They've learned that fear isn't a red light, it's a green light. It means they're on the edge of something meaningful, something transformative, something powerful. Fear shows up the loudest when you're about to level up. The antidote to fear is not confidence, it's courage. And courage isn't about being fearless, it's about being bold with fear in the room. Courage doesn't wait for fear to leave. Courage says, you can stay, but I'm going anyway. You don't get rid of fear by thinking it away. You get rid of fear by building evidence that you don't need it. And you build that evidence by taking action. You want to start that business, write that book, launch that project, speak your truth, make that call, take that risk, but you wait. You wait until the fear goes away. And so the dream waits too, but here's the reality. Fear doesn't leave before the leap. It leaves because of the leap. You train fear that it has no control by acting in spite of it, not by avoiding it. Fear says you're not ready. Action says, let's find out. Fear says you might fail. Action says, failure is a teacher. Fear says, stay safe. Action says, growth is worth the risk. When you act in the face of fear, you reclaim your power. You shift from victim to creator. You stop reacting to life and start shaping it. You stop asking, what if it doesn't work, and start asking, what if this changes everything? The people who do great things in this world aren't braver than you. They're not born with some superhuman courage. They've just trained their nervous system to move before their mind talks them out of it. They've practiced showing up scared. They've built the muscle of momentum. And over time, that muscle becomes stronger than fear's voice. That's what action does. It gives you momentum. And momentum creates belief. Belief builds identity. Suddenly, you're no longer someone who wants to or thinks about doing the thing. You're someone who does. Identity isn't built by what you say, it's built by what you do. If you want to be someone who overcomes fear, then start acting like it even before you believe it. And here's the twist. Fear doesn't just lie about what you can't do. It lies about what will happen if you try. It convinces you that taking the leap will lead to ruin, that you'll be judged, laughed at, rejected. But when you act, you realize most of those stories were illusions. The things you were scared of don't happen. And even if some do, they don't break you. They make you stronger, sharper, more unshakable. Fear says protect your pride. Action says protect your purpose. Fear will tell you that rejection is a reason to quit, but action teaches you that rejection is redirection. You only learn that by doing. You can't think your way into that lesson. You have to live it. And even when fear is justified, even when the stakes are high, action still wins. Because action leads to growth. It leads to learning. It leads to expansion. And every time you act, you become more of who you're meant to be. Fear tries to shrink you. Action expands you. Fear builds walls. Action breaks them down. You want to build a life you're proud of? You want to look back and say, I gave it everything? Then act. Move. Decide. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need all the answers. You need movement. Action is messy, it's uncomfortable, it's often chaotic, but it's sacred. Because it's the only thing that can rewrite the story. Fear has been feeding you. Power unused becomes pain. Use it or lose it. Every single person is born with a certain level of power. The power to create, to decide, to lead, to heal, to speak, to transform. It's not reserved for the elite. It doesn't only belong to the successful, the wealthy, or the celebrated. It lives inside everyone. But here's the reality most people don't face. Unused power doesn't stay dormant. It doesn't sit quietly and wait for you to wake up one day and finally use it. It starts to turn inward. It becomes frustration. It becomes restlessness. It becomes anxiety, depression, resentment. That's what happens when potential is ignored. It morphs into pain. Think about it. How many people do you know who feel stuck, angry, or bitter, and they don't even know why? They say things like, I should be further along, or there's something missing, or I feel like I'm made for more. That's not just wishful thinking. That's power calling out. That's a deeper part of them screaming to be used, to be expressed, not because they don't have it, but because they've been conditioned to bury it. From a young age, society teaches us to play by the rules, to follow the path, to not rock the boat. We're told what to believe, what to chase, how to act. And if you step too far outside that line, you get labeled difficult, unrealistic, arrogant. So people adapt. They downplay their voice. They lower their standards. They ignore their intuition. They turn down the volume on their inner fire just to fit in with people who are also hiding theirs. And day by day, year by year, that unused power starts to hurt. It shows up in the form of doubt, of self-sabotage, of playing small even when the dream is screaming inside. It shows up as overthinking, as hesitation, as procrastination. You weren't born with those habits. They developed when you started suppressing what you were meant to express. And over time, that suppression turns into suffering. There's nothing more painful than knowing you're capable of more and doing nothing about it. That gap between your potential and your reality becomes a source of internal conflict. It eats at your confidence. It dulls your drive. You stop trusting yourself. You start questioning everything. And that's not because you're broken. It's because you're blocked. You're trying to contain something that was never meant to be contained. Power is energy, and energy demands movement. When you trap it, it doesn't disappear, it implodes. You see it in people who had big dreams and gave up on them. You see it in those who settled, then spend their lives bitter toward those who didn't. That bitterness is not about other people's success, it's about their own unused power. They gave up their agency. They ignored the voice inside. And now they carry that weight like a secret. You can feel it in their tone, in their eyes, in their energy. They aren't lacking opportunity, they're weighed down by untapped potential. Power's not meant to sit on a shelf. It's meant to be activated, exercised, expressed. If you don't use it, you lose it. Not because it disappears, but because you disconnect from it. You start believing it was never there in the first place. And once that belief takes root, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You stop trying, you stop pushing, you stop showing up, and your life begins to shrink to fit your limited perception. But make no mistake, it's still there. The power never leaves. It just waits. It waits for a crack in your doubt. It waits for a moment of courage. It waits for you to stop playing victim and remember that you're the author of your story. That's the moment everything starts to shift. Not when life gets easier, but when you get bolder. When you decide to stop letting fear sit at the head of the table. When you reclaim what's always been yours. The only way to avoid the pain of unused power is to use it. Speak your truth even if your voice shakes. Build something even if it's messy. Take the leap even if your knees are trembling, because every time you use your power, you reconnect with your purpose. You remind yourself of who you are. You build a new identity, one that's based on action, not avoidance. And you don't have to start big, you just have to start. Power doesn't grow in silence, it grows in motion. The more you use it, the more it expands. You get sharper, you get stronger, you get clearer. What once felt terrifying starts to feel natural. What once overwhelmed you becomes your playground. That's what happens when you step into your power. It starts to work for you. It becomes momentum, and momentum is magic. It's what separates those who dream from those who do. But let's be real, it's going to be uncomfortable. Power doesn't show up wrapped in comfort. It shows up through challenge, through resistance, through decisions that stretch you. That's where it lives. That's where it grows. And most people avoid those places, which is why most people live lives that don't even scratch the surface of their potential. You were not meant to just survive. You were meant to expand, to evolve, to create. And none of that happens without power. Your voice is power. Your time is power. Your choices are power. Your presence is power. When you withhold those things from the world, you create a life that feels smaller than your soul can handle. And that's where pain creeps in, not the pain of failure. That's manageable. That's growth. The pain that cuts the deepest is the pain of knowing you never really tried. that you held back, that you buried the parts of yourself that were meant to shine, that you let fear steal the steering wheel and drive you to a destination you never wanted. But that pain can be a signal that you're not done, that there's more in you, that you're not too late, that no matter how long you've played it safe, you can change the game by choosing differently. Right now, this second. Because power doesn't care about your past. It only responds to your decision to use it. And when you do, something wild happens. You don't just change your circumstances, you change your chemistry. You walk differently, you breathe differently, you think on a higher level. You attract people who move like you, think like you, dream like you. You start to create momentum that other people can feel. That energy, that force, that's your power, finally unleashed, finally expressed, finally doing what it was meant to do from the start. Your story is not your sentence, it's your setup. So many people walk around wearing the weight of their past like a badge of identity. They think because something happened to them, it has to define them. That because they were hurt, betrayed, abandoned, overlooked, underestimated, that this becomes their ceiling. But the truth is, your past is not a prison unless you lock the door yourself. What happened to you is not more powerful than what's possible through you. Your story is not your sentence, it's your setup. Every struggle, every setback, every scar is part of the blueprint for your breakthrough. Life didn't throw pain your way to destroy you, it did it to prepare you. It sharpened you, it carved out strength you didn't even know you had. But you've got to stop dragging your story around like a chain and start using it like a weapon. That pain didn't come to paralyze you, it came to produce something in you that comfort never could. Too many people get stuck at the chapter they didn't like, they repeat it over and over again, not realizing they're the ones holding the pen. The moment you realize that, you reclaim the power to write something new. Your life is not a movie on autoplay. It's not a fixed script someone else handed you. It's a blank page every single day. And your past may explain you, but it never defines you unless you decide it does. People will try to label you, systems will try to box you in, your environment may have tried to limit you, but none of those things are as powerful as your decision to break the cycle. And that's the key. It's not about what happened, it's about what you do next. The difference between people who rise and people who stay stuck isn't what they've been through, it's how they choose to frame it. The pain can either become your excuse or your evolution. The story can be your weight or your weapon. You can let it bury you or you can let it build you. Every time something knocked you down, you had two choices. Stay down or get up with more fire. And if you're still breathing, you're undefeated. Don't ever forget that. You're still here. That means you've got more in you. That means your story's still being written. Stop telling yourself that the past is a prophecy. It's not. It's a pattern. And patterns can be broken. Cycles can end with you. Pain can turn into power the moment you flip the script. That part of your life you're ashamed of, that mistake you made, that season you barely survived, it's not the end. It's the raw material for your next level. That chapter can become the reason someone else finds their strength. That moment can become the foundation of your mission. Your story doesn't disqualify you, it equips you. The fact that you've been through what you've been through and you're still standing, still searching, still showing up, that's your edge. That's what gives you authenticity. That's what makes you powerful. People connect with real, with raw, with someone who's walked through fire and came out carrying wisdom. You don't need a perfect story, you need a real one. And yours is real and it matters. But you've got to stop editing out your power. You've got to stop rehearsing your pain and start releasing your purpose. Too many people are walking around with an outdated identity based on an old chapter. But if you keep identifying with who you were, you'll never become who you're meant to be. You've evolved, you've grown, you're not the same person. Stop dragging the shame, guilt, or regret of the old version of you into a season that's calling for a new one. This isn't about pretending the pain didn't happen. This isn't about ignoring the trauma. This is about transforming it. It's about deciding that what tried to break you doesn't get the final word, that you get to be the author now. That you can take that pain and turn it into something that empowers not just you, but everyone connected to you. There are people waiting for the version of you that shows up fully. The version that owns the story without being owned by it. The version that uses the past as fuel, not as chains. And when you start showing up as that person, everything shifts. Your energy shifts, your environment shifts, your relationships shift because you're no longer leading with limitation. There is nothing more magnetic than someone who has turned their pain into purpose. Who doesn't hide their scars but wears them like armor. Who stands in rooms and speaks truth because they've lived it. And that's where your power lives, not in what you've avoided, but in what you've overcome. That's what gives you depth. That's what makes you unstoppable. The lie is that your story makes you weak. The truth is your story is your superpower. And when you stop trying to rewrite the past and instead start rewriting the meaning, you free yourself from the prison of what was and step into the possibility of what can be. Think about the heroes you admire, the leaders you respect, the voices that have shaped your thinking. They all have a story. And it's not a story of perfection. It's a story of rising, of resilience, of facing something hard and refusing to let it define the outcome. That same fire is in you. That same strength is in you. That same voice, that same vision, that same power is waiting for you to claim it. But you've got to stop running from the hard parts. You've got to stop pretending that your past is something to hide. It's not. It's the evidence that you're still standing, that you didn't fold, that you kept going. There's gold in those moments, but you'll never mine it if you're too busy covering it up. What would happen if you stopped wishing your story was different and started owning it completely? What would happen if you stopped holding back parts of yourself to make other people comfortable? What would happen if you stopped waiting for someone else to rewrite the ending and picked up the pen yourself? That's the power of reframing. That's the power of choosing to rise. That's the power of turning your setup into something unstoppable. Your story doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be true. And your truth, when owned fully, becomes the most unshakable foundation you can stand on. Success is a decision, not a condition. Most people walk around waiting for permission, waiting for a sign, a circumstance, a perfect alignment of opportunity and motivation. They think success is something that happens to you, like weather, like luck, like fate. They sit back and wait for the moment they feel ready, for the right time, for the resources to show up, for someone to validate their worth. But that's not how success works. Success doesn't knock on doors. It responds to decision. It bows to commitment. It is summoned by those who refuse to wait for conditions to be perfect and choose instead to create the conditions through relentless action and belief. The world is filled with people who have dreams but no decision, who talk about goals but never lock into them, who dabble, who dip their toe in the water but never go all in. That's not a decision. That's hesitation wearing ambition as a mask. A decision means cutting off all other options. It means closing the back door. It means saying, this is who I am now. This is what I do. This is where I'm going, no matter what comes at me. And when you make that kind of decision, the world responds. Energy shifts. People take notice. Resources begin to appear, not because they were missing, but because your focus was scattered. A real decision creates a new lens, and through that lens, you start to see possibilities you were blind to before. Success doesn't come to the most talented. It doesn't even come to the smartest. It comes to the most committed, the ones who wake up and decide every single day that they're not going to quit, that they're going to keep showing up, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's boring, even when nobody's clapping for them. Success is attracted to consistency, and consistency is born from a decision so deep, so non-negotiable, that nothing can talk you out of it. Not failure, not fear, not fatigue. Too many people think they're chasing success, but they're actually avoiding the decisions that would bring it closer. Because real decisions demand discomfort. They demand identity shifts. They require you to let go of the version of you that's been surviving and step into the version that's ready to lead, to act, to rise. And that's scary. That's why people hesitate. That's why they wait. But all that waiting just delays the inevitable truth. Success doesn't show up until you do. It doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't lower the bar for your insecurities. It rewards clarity. It rewards commitment. It rewards action. You can have the best idea in the world, but without the decision to pursue it relentlessly, it stays an idea. You can have all the talent in the world, but without the decision to sharpen it daily, it stays potential. You can have the most compelling vision, but without the decision to bring it to life with discipline and sacrifice, it never becomes reality. Decision is the switch that turns on momentum. It is the trigger that activates the grind, the habits, the courage required to win. And most people never flip that switch. They flirt with success, but they never date it. They want the outcome without the identity shift. They want the reward without the sacrifice. But you don't get what you want, you get what you're committed to. The beauty of decision is that it doesn't wait for your feelings to catch up. You can decide to act powerful before you feel powerful. You can decide to move forward even while fear is screaming. You can decide to be disciplined even when motivation is gone. That's what separates the winners from the wishers. They don't rely on external conditions, they rely on internal clarity. They know the storms will come, they know failure is part of the game, but they also know that once a decision is made, the outcome is no longer optional. It's done, it's finished in their mind, and all that's left is the execution. Do you want to know who's going to win in life? Watch what they do when it gets hard. Watch what they do when the crowd leaves, when the progress slows, when the fire flickers. The ones who rise are the ones who already decided they were going to win before it looked like they were winning. They don't negotiate with their goal every week. They don't downgrade the dream to match the delay. They upgrade their discipline to match the vision. Because success doesn't respond to wishes, it responds to will. Decision is the foundation of identity. The moment you decide you're not the same person anymore, your behavior starts to follow. The moment you decide you're done making excuses, your energy shifts. The moment you decide that your dream is non-negotiable, your standards rise. And when your standards rise, everything around you adjusts to meet them or gets left behind. People feel that kind of decision. They either get inspired or intimidated by it, but they don't ignore it. Because decision creates a frequency. And that frequency either attracts alignment or repels what's no longer in resonance with your vision. Stop thinking of success as some magical event in the future. It's not a lottery ticket. It's a lifestyle. It's the daily choice to show up for what matters, to be the person who follows through, to lead your life instead of waiting to be rescued by it. Success is available to anyone, but only claimed by those who decide to own it. It doesn't knock. It waits for you to build the door. And the tools to build it, they're already in your hands. They're your focus, your habits, your hunger. The only missing piece is your decision to use them like your life depends on it. Because it does, not in a dramatic way, but in a truth-telling way. The life you want isn't going to show up because the world finally sees your value. It's going to show up because you made a decision that your value is no longer hidden. That your dream is no longer optional, that your time is no longer wasted. And once you make that decision, you stop chasing validation and start creating impact. You stop reacting to life and start leading it. And here's the wild part. Once the decision is made, the struggle gets easier, not because life stops throwing curveballs, but because you stop entertaining alternatives. You stop indulging in doubt. You stop quitting on yourself. You're no longer trying to see if it'll work. You've already decided it will. So now you're just doing the reps. taking the hits, learning the lessons, growing through the process. And every step you take reinforces the decision. It builds belief. It builds muscle. It builds momentum. There's something powerful about a person who's decided. You can feel it. It's in their presence. It's in their posture. It's in their words. It's in the way they keep moving forward when everyone else is retreating. They don't ask if success is possible. They've already answered that question. They're not waiting for the next motivational quote. They've already written their own internal script. Their life becomes a reflection of that decision. Their results, their relationships, their routines, they all align with it. So if you're waiting for a sign, this is it. If you're waiting for certainty, it's never coming. Decision comes first. Certainty comes after. Action creates evidence, and evidence builds belief. But it all starts with the moment you say, I'm done waiting, I'm done wishing, I've decided.